you to the launch of the Central New Brunswick Regional Workforce Strategy event. Hello, welcome. I think almost everybody in this room probably knows most of the other people in this room, and hopefully you know our panelists, and if you don't, you're going to get to know them over the next few minutes. So what I want to start with is I want to acknowledge first that we are on the unceded territory and traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik people. This region is covered by the Peace and Friendship Treaty of 1725, which formalized trade and peaceful relations between the Wolastoqiyik, the Mi'kmaq, and the Passamaquoddy. So we've been working towards peaceful economic shared benefits on trade for over 300 years. Another thing I'd like to mention is I personally have always been fascinated by the pyramids and Egyptian mythology, and I remember someone once telling me that, so the pyramids are 7,000 years old, and we have archaeological evidence of continuous indigenous civilization and residence in this area for over 15,000 years. So part of why I like to do a land acknowledgement at the beginning of any of the events that I host is that we are here to talk about change and about renewal. And I think it's about telling a shared story and also looking at how we tell our stories in a different way. And that is what we are here to talk about today. So, like I said, we're talking about the Central New Brunswick Regional Workforce Development Strategy. So, what is Central New Brunswick? So it's going to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Fredericton, New Maryland, Hanwell, Harvey, or Amukdo corridor. Am I getting it right, gang? That's who you are? And so it has private and public sector employers, and I don't know if any of you know, but the largest public sector employer is not actually GNB, it is CFB Gagetown, which has over 7,000 people down there in Amukdo. So the purpose of this strategy is to help agencies and organizations that are at work in workforce development to better connect employers with the qualified candidates and to strengthen the connection between employer needs and candidate skills. How am I doing so far, Sarah? Okay. So it's about right people, right skills at the right time. And you know what, Fredericton? You guys are kind of off to a good start. You're kind of killing it already. According to this study, Central New Brunswick has 66 workforce assets. So what the heck do I mean when I say asset? Well, that includes programs, support organizations, post-secondary institutions, Crown agencies, government departments, companies, job boards, and campaigns. So you already have a great foundation upon which to build off of. So this strategy was commissioned by Working NB, which is a part of the Department of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labor, also known as PEDAL. And it was developed by Fredericton's own Stiletto. And here at Ignite, it has been led by Nasheen Ali, who is the manager of Workforce Development and Attraction. And Nasheen is in the background. There she is. She's sitting quietly so we can go take her afterwards. Okay, so let's get started, and we're going to meet our fabulous panelists who are going to talk to us today about it. I will start with, sitting beside me, is Stanley Barnaby, the new Chief Executive Officer of JEDI, which is the Joint Economic Development Initiative. So congratulations on the promotion, Stanley. Beside him, we have Catherine Cameron, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Beauceron, which is a fabulous scale-up here in Fredericton. Beside her, we have Oksana Tesla, who is the Special Projects Lead with Terrace Earth Intelligence, a high-growth startup, also here in Fredericton. And last but not least is the person I have known the longest on the panel, Sarah Price, who is the Executive Director of Working NB. So I've got a couple of questions for everybody, then we'll have a lovely conversation. So Stanley, when we think about the chronic labor shortage, and let's be honest, chronic labor shortage is a word we use quite often in Brunswick. When we think about that chronic labor shortage, so when we think specifically about either the Indigenous community or JEDI, how have you experienced it? When I say chronic labor shortage, what does that mean to you?
I guess it's, from our organizational standpoint, is understanding the labor shortages is just, we can turn that into an opportunity. and taking those, those labor shortages and then creating projects that can create opportunities for Indigenous people.
Okay. So where are some of the opportunities you see?
So one of our main, activities that we see as an opportunity, I think we all kind of know with the cybersecurity building up the street, but we've been running a cybersecurity program for the last 3 or 4 years. And that's definitely one area that we have a focus in and will continue to focus training in. We've recently just changed our program into being a co-op program, so it comes with a it's 6 months in course, 6 months on the job training. Paid opportunity too, because we have a really good partnership with CCMB along with the Information Communication Technology Council, which actually they support the paid internship opportunity for our Indigenous students.
Mm-hmm. And so how can you, when you think of this new strategy that is launching, what role do you want JEDI to play? How do you see yourselves participating in that? What's JEDI bringing to the network? From JEDI, what we want to do is we obviously want to train our Indigenous students in the proper fields the right way. But we also want to make sure that our Indigenous students have the right and respectful workplace. Mm-hmm. So part of that, we offer, our Indigenous Reconciliation Awareness module, which goes through the true history of the Indigenous people in Canada and New Brunswick and Atlantic Canada as well. So as part of that, that's just one step, is having that understanding. But then actually, how do you change that mindset? How do you change your culture within your organization or your company to best incorporate the Indigenous people in the workplace? Yeah, I've actually read and know about the reconciliation module that JEDI is offering. I think it is fabulous. And actually, so my little company is a B Corp, and so I've actually been talking to the other B Corps in New Brunswick about us as a group going through. So,
awesome.
Yeah. All right, well, Catherine, so that was a good start, an organizational start. So now, Catherine, you're running what I call like a scale up, right? So maybe quickly tell the crowd here, Beauceron started when and is now where?
That's a great question. So Beauceron Security started as a full-time business in 2017. So in the summertime, we closed our first funding round of $500,000. 1 full-time staff. 5 early adopter customers. Fast forward 5 years, we've just crossed over 45 full-time staff members, 500 customers across North America, serving some of Canada's largest telecoms and financial service organizations. So we've had the pleasure of working with organizations that have 10, 20, 25 people and understanding how to make their workforce more secure,
right,
up to protecting Canada's critical infrastructure with hundreds of thousands of employees. So it's just such a wide range, and from an employer perspective, really amazing in terms of trying to grow and find talent, right? Mm-hmm. When we think about what talent looks like for us, we are in cybersecurity, but we're more like a software company than we are a pure cybersecurity consulting firm. And so we've got people, in sales and marketing and product management. Those are our highest needs, or software development. So it's interesting to see, when we look at that workforce shortage, how many people in Fredericton have, deployed a security awareness program to a Fortune 500 bank?
Right.
Very few people.
Right? So you have.
Yeah, we have. And so for us, looking at the talent and building the team, it's how do we as an organization get really good at finding people who are eager to learn, maybe out of school, have a history, and their background might be in something different, and they're looking for a change in career. How do we attract those people who want to learn, teach them how to run security awareness programs, teach them how to sell to customers, teach them how to, run a product management function. And so that's been a very interesting, I'd say, evolution over our 5 years of, 5, 10 employees. It's kind of easy to, you start tapping out who you know very quickly. And it's been an interesting journey.
Well, already I see the strategy at work because you and Stanley need to have a chat.
Yes, we do. Absolutely.
So you read the document, you were telling me afterwards, you're like, oh, like, your initial reaction after you read the document was, there's a lot
of information in it. I opened it expecting kind of like a 5-page summary, and it was like 50 to 60 pages. And I was like, okay, I needed more time to read this.
So as an employer and as someone looking for talent, when you look at that strategy, where can you see it benefiting you? Where can you, and I guess that shared benefit, right? Like, so, because it is about right skills at the right time, the right people, right skills, right time.
Yep.
So how can you see yourself tapping into it?
What I really loved about reading the strategy was how much collaboration was happening. I think in your introduction you mentioned 66 different organizations, post-secondary institutions that are working together to try and get people in the right roles. That's a lot, and as I wore our HR hiring hat up until this January, and so trying to keep track and build relationships with all those different organizations is very challenging. And I think what I really loved in seeing the strategy was how much collaboration there was going to be, and I think that provides a really amazing opportunity for, as a small business, there to be it becomes a connected network. So when you reach out to someone, they're like, okay, you've got one point of contact, and then they can help direct you where you need to go, and everyone is talking to each other, everyone knows the value of the different programs that you're working in, and I think just being aware of what's even available is a really great first step.
That's awesome. So you know what, I think you naturally dovetail into what to Oksana. So Oksana Tesla with Terrace, Earth Intelligence. So same question for you that I started with Catherine. When did Terrace get started? Because you were here at the beginning, and where are you now?
Almost at the beginning, yeah. So the Terrace was officially founded in 2018, and fun story about the pandemic, they officially signed the rent agreement at the office in downtown 3 days before everything locked down. Regardless the pandemic and hard times, since then we've been able to grow from 3 full-time employees to 20 till now. I joined 3D Planet as a volunteer. I was back then as a student at NBCC. So the journey is very interesting since the very beginning, but now I am on the other side of the fence. I am involved very actively in HR and recruiting for the company. I can see the challenges that small businesses are facing. I know it's way easier for the big businesses, but when especially if you're working in a very specific sector, you're looking for people with a very specific skill set. Where do you find those people? So we are growing. We will have another round of hiring very soon, and I hope this strategy will help us to have access to that information, or maybe to some sources. But we already see the challenges right now.
And of course, Oksana, you have just received your citizenship. Yes. So congratulations. So Oksana, and Oksana is Ukrainian. And Oksana is also leading the charge around Ukrainian humanitarian relief here in the Fredericton region. So if anyone wants to participate in that, please talk to Oksana afterwards. But Oksana, one of the things that Terrace has done very, very well is attract and recruit people from elsewhere because either they're here as international students, well, mostly they've been through the international student program. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the workforce being a pathway to citizenship.
So it happened by accident. We realized that when we started assessing our team we have currently on the floor, that around 50% represent either visible minorities, or they're immigrants, or they're underrepresented groups. Until we actually ran through the statistics, we didn't realize that. And how that happened, probably we were staying in a very close communication and partnership with the educational institutions, UNB and BCC. This is from where, so our emergency talent engagement program, we're accepting a lot of students almost every internship period, like the biggest number was 9 students at a time. We had in our small company. By then we had maybe 15 full-time employees. It's hard, it's time-consuming, but this is how we are trying to get to know the students, the new talent, and identify, are they the students that would like to work for us? Are we a good employer for them? So our pathway was through the educational institutions, and they do provide a great source of really great skilled labor.
So Sarah, Sarah Price, who's the executive director of Working MB. So Sarah and I have known each other for 18 years, Sarah. And 18 years ago, in April, we got on a bus and one of the things we went as we toured New Brunswick was we talked about the workforce and the disconnect. And now you're in charge. Just very exciting. So having heard what our panelists have said, what are you hearing? Tell us from your perspective at that 50,000 foot level, what is it about the strategy like when you want?
Sure, and maybe I'll start by thanks, Lisa. And I want to thank everybody who was involved in organizing. I'm sure we'll get to thank yous eventually, but it's so exciting. Working and being kind of set out on this mission to set up these labor market partnership forums and get these strategies going. So it's really exciting to be here today, and it's kind of like seeing your baby be born, or maybe it's going off to college. I'm not sure. It's really great stuff. So I might get
something is leaving something.
Yeah, something. It's very exciting. So that's great. And I know so many people were involved in the development of the strategy. I don't want to start naming people, but it's, like I said, it's just really, and it's exciting to be here in person and to see all of your smiling faces. We haven't been able to do this in 2 years, so that's really wonderful. So I might start by just giving a little bit of a snippet on Working MB, because I know that we've gone through a bit of a redesign over the last couple of years, and our mandate's changed a little bit. So Working MB's mandate really is to strategically respond to the evolving needs of the labor market. And we do that by working with individuals, by working with employers, and by working with the labor market as a whole. And I would say, probably 18 years ago when we were on that tour, the labor market was a really different place. So there were more people than there were jobs. So our organization, we were primarily working with unemployed people, and our work with employers was around creating jobs, like new jobs, right? There's been this fundamental shift, which is why we're all here today, where we now have more jobs than people. And so Working MB really had to really think about the way we were delivering our services. So we really moved our focus away from simply working with unemployed people and trying to create jobs. And now we're really trying to find people. So it's, how do we get full participation in the labor market for everybody who's here in the province? How do we engage with people across the country and across the world to get them to New Brunswick? Of course, working with opportunities in New Brunswick. And then working with our employers on their human resource support services. So again, we've moved away from job subsidies and things like that, because people don't need that. They need people. They need, organizations need people. And so, we're working now to support employers with delivering training, with supporting their recruitment needs, all that kind of thing. So there's really been this big shift. And I think that what this strategy represents is that shift, right? We've gone through a couple of years of redesign, and now these strategies, which are going to launch all across the province, are really kicking off from a regional perspective how we move forward in the realities of today's labor market.
Okay, so here we've got representatives from the 66. What would you say to them about how to start to tap into that strategy? How would you want people to start to engage with it?
Well, the first thing they should do is call Erica's office. but seriously, I hope that all of the organizations, one of the things that I was most excited to see in this strategy was sort of that ecosystem mapping.
Right.
To me, there's so much good stuff going on out there, and I think that we found it a little bit surprising when we started going through to find out that there really were 66 different organizations that were providing service in this space. We need to start working together. We need to stop duplicating services. Everybody needs to focus in on kind of their niche area and start communicating. So that was really exciting. And genuinely, if you are an employer and you are looking for support, you should reach out to a Working MB office, because there's a whole network of employment counselors, workforce consultants out there who work with employers, who can provide support, who can get you connected with all these different service providers, and can provide a lot of different support navigating ecosystem. So I think that I've got to shamelessly promote working in B a little bit, but I think that again shifting. The next biggest thing I would say is employers starting to shift the way, and it sounds like you guys are doing this, but the way that you've done your recruiting, like I think companies have really traditionally in New Brunswick have been very comfortable hiring a certain type of employee. And when we look at labor force participation, there are actually 90,000 working age New Brunswickers in the province who aren't participating in the labor market right now. So they're not working, they're not looking for work. A big chunk of those are older workers, so they're 50 to 65, they've retired early. Let's figure out ways to get them re-engaged in the workforce. But that means as an employer, you might have to be a little bit flexible. Like they may not be looking for Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, but they've got some really great skills that you can take advantage of for a couple days a week. Another big chunk is persons with disabilities. So we've got about 20,000 New Brunswickers not participating, again, who have some great skills to bring to the table. So how can we support persons with disabilities to get them back into the workforce? Other underrepresented groups, Stanley spoke really well about this being a great opportunity for Indigenous people. There's young people that graduate high school and have no plan. Like, how do we get everybody who's here working? And as an employer, I would encourage you to really think about all of those different supply groups and how you can get them engaged. Because we're at a place where you're going to have to do that. Obviously, diversity brings a richness to the workplace and really creative. There's all kinds of great reasons for diversity and inclusion, but we're also just getting to a place where logistically it's going to be necessary, right?
Absolutely. I often, when I talk about diversity with people and with clients, I often say diversity gives you options. And when you're working to solve big, huge problems, the more options you have, the stronger your solution is going to be. So maybe I can throw it back to everybody here. What I'm hearing all of you talk about is the need for access and the need for speed. So, and here, dear audience, I'm giving them a question I didn't tell them about before. How do we achieve that, right? Because you two, Beauceron and Terrace, when they need someone immediately, or they need them yesterday. And Sarah and Stanley, you're working with people who you're trying to get into the workforce. So talk to me a little bit about how you might see the opportunity here around access and speed and some of those different options we might have to exercise. Go ahead, Stanley.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess, the couple of things that I would touch on is, if we, obviously the labor market, we need to, you mentioned speed, and getting individuals hired and working into the workforce. Making some changes to even the hiring process or, even job descriptions. And, we've worked with a few different groups, and the one thing that kind of, might deter Indigenous people from applying for jobs is the job descriptions themselves. Looking for, all the, experience, qualifications, and things like that, that definitely will deter Indigenous people. One practice that we've heard and seen with one group, is not necessarily having a formal interview, a formal job description, is more or less sitting down with the individual, maybe going through their life experiences and trying to figure out what are those transferable skills into a role within the organization. That could, if in having the opportunity for mentorship too. We have, like you mentioned, there's a lot of positions out there that require a specific skill set, but if they're just entering the workforce now, they need someone to give them that skill set.
Right.
So, a big part of that is capacity development and, that ongoing mentorship. So really, just looking at those innovative ways of hiring is definitely would probably make a lot of change.
Right. So Catherine, I see you nodding your head, so build on that for us.
Well, and I will say, I think about the shift within working in B, and even the shift within the past 5 years. 5 years ago, our company was getting wage subsidies to create jobs, and now, we reach out to our consultant, and she's like, here's the programs, here's a job fair, here's how we can help, here's some, we can collaborate with ONB. There's just such a shift. And it's really great to hear you, Sarah, talk about that, because as an employer, I've noticed that and I felt that difference. And then going back to your point, Stanley, here, there is a lot to be said for those transferable skills. Like, life experience really matters. And so something that we've really looked at doing has been really drilling into the requirements for a job and trying to sift out what's actually important. What do they really need to know? What's going to help somebody be successful in this role? Probably not a college degree most of the time, unless it's super relevant, unless they absolutely need one. If we're hiring a financial accountant, they probably need a CPA. Other than that, it's flexible, right? Lots of people have learned development skills without going for a computer science degree, a 4-year program or a 2-year program. If you are organized and structured and logical and methodical, you're probably going to do pretty well in product management. So a lot of those transferable skills are what we're trying to capture in those job requirements, which traditionally would have been, university or degree or similar, bilingual. Maybe they have to have 3 to 5 years in product management before we look at hiring somebody. And so as an employer, we're trying to recognize that and shift even how we're crafting, especially those requirements.
Right, and certainly I know that the post-secondary institutions, I don't know if anybody's here from a post-secondary institution, but are starting to think that way as well. Okay, so once they're in the workforce, how can we then support by drilling down into the specific technical or intellectual knowledge that is required to continue to advance that?
Right, critical thinking is that's a skill. You can absolutely learn that in post-secondary. You can also learn that in life experience, right? So I think it's recognizing that there's no one perfect path. I guess all of those different pathways that people can take are valid and good and can add a lot of value to an organization. So it's finding ways to open up and collaborate with different groups when possible.
Right.
Yeah, I think, Catherine, we almost, when we were in that situation where we had more people than jobs, we designed systems to keep people out, right? And now we need to totally turn those systems on their head and figure out ways to keep people in, not to keep people out. And I think you were talking about on the job training, it just struck me, I was looking over at Anne and we're working up together on a lot of micro-credentialing initiatives. I mean, micro-credentialing, I don't even know if that was a term 5 years ago.
No, I know, yeah.
But it's there's all that kind of exciting.
Prior learning.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the A and the R stand for. It's an
Prior
acronym.
learning and assessment.
Prior learning and assessment.
But someone may have a degree in art history, but could absolutely be a great salesperson, right? There's just all of these different backgrounds that are, I think.
Look at me, I got a degree in Russian history.
There you go.
Look at you, talking economics. Roxanne, what were you going to say?
I would like to add to what Catherine said. So yes, requirements are important, and I do know, and when we draft the job posting, we try to take into consideration various factors and try to make this posting open to as many candidates as possible, but still, and depending on the position.
Mm-hmm.
Some positions do require very specific skills, and we cannot avoid that. But transferable skills are very important, and also what is very important is what type of person is. So after the reviewing applications, the interview we consider as a key element in identifying, is this the person that will benefit working with us, and we will benefit when the person will join our team. So we are trying to identify that match, and during the interview, we may not ask very specific skill questions, and most likely only one among those questions will be on the skill side. The rest will be about the person identify what the values the person has or what the person stands for, identify those critical thinking, detail orientation, all those, they call it soft skills, but they are literally not. They're very important skills.
Awesome. So Sarah, you like what you're hearing?
That's what I'm hearing. I wish I could clone these guys and make sure that all of our employers were as forward-thinking as inclusive. And I think, and that's going to be the challenge, right? We have some employers that are way out ahead of this thing and are really employing a lot of new strategies around recruitment, But we have to get all employers moving in the same direction and really kind of broadening, looking at the way that they recruit, the way that they hire, and the way that they retain. Like, again, when you have this shortage of people, you can't afford to lose people either. And I know we've talked a lot about the recruitment side of things, but retention.
I was just reading in the Globe and Mail this week about that as the tech, particularly in the tech sector, the Canadian tech sector, having now been on, kind of had a few good quarters, is now being challenged because now the American tech sector is ramping up again and coming in, and because of remote work, we've all decided, hey, you can work anywhere. So here in Atlantic Canada, we said, come on down, move here, the houses are a lot cheaper. And so everyone's relocating here, but not necessarily going to, but then they'll be like, oh, well, this was fun, but now Google's gonna pay me 3 times the amount and I still get to live here. So that'll be a big challenge, yeah, that retention piece. Yes, you're like, yeah.
What's been really interesting on you know, lots of people are calling it like the Great Resignation, right? Like I think every organization kind of felt some degree of turnover, right. And trying to find ways to proactively, right? Like, you know, Google, we're never going to compete with Google on salary. I think any New Brunswick-based company is really going to struggle to beat that.
Right. Well, any Canadian company, quite frankly, is going to have a difficult time beating San Jose.
Yeah, absolutely. But finding the people that are interested, passionate, caring about building businesses in New Brunswick, right. Like ones who have that values alignment, those are the people that are going to stay with you. Right. That aren't just going for, you know, the paycheck every 2 weeks. They're the ones who actually are really focused on, you know, moving the province and the organization forward. Right, right. Finding them.
Be still my heart, talking about values. I love that. But yeah, it's that place-based economy. So how do you build an economy that benefits, that is for, by, and championed by the people who live within that region? Right? Yeah. Well, this might be the perfect time then to bring Angela Nelson up to the stage to tell us the who, what, where, when of how we're going to do this. So Angela works with Sarah at Working NB, and she oversees this region. So she's the gal, one of the people you will be talking to when you're like, okay, this sounds awesome, where do I start? And Angela, talk to us about the starting line. Who's in the pole position and how do they get out in front?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm really excited to be here because I do remember being in a room where we were all together and we're like, what the heck are we doing here? So now I'd like to see this strategy launched. It's really exciting. So every day as a workforce consultant, I work with employers, and really the main concern that a lot of employers are having right now is where do you find talent? So, you know, in terms of my role, I provide human resources support services to employers around recruitment, retention, and HR management. And so recruitment could be as easy as, you know, helping employers with a job description. It could be, you know, showing them where to post their job. It could be, you know, connecting them with our recruitment job fairs that we're having. It could also be, you know, connecting them with clients that we have that our employment counselors are working with. So it's really about those connections and helping, you know, employers. The other thing Sarah mentioned, retention, is really, really important. So, you know, we provide labor force training where we can train and support employers with their needs. And it's really important because, you know, a lot of employers think that, as Sarah said, once you get them in the door, that's it. But, you know, it's not always money too. It's always, you know, how do you keep employees happy and engaged? And the last piece that I'll mention, and I am getting to that point, but it is kind of leading into that, human resource management, because we do get a lot of employers too that come to us with no HR support. They don't even know what HR is. So we're really there to support employers in terms of getting policies and procedures put in place, because we're seeing a lot of lawsuits now. If you don't know how to dismiss someone, you can get into some legal issues. So we're really ensuring employers have those support pieces in place. So that being said, working in Brunswick, like I said, I wanted to talk about what we do, because before, when the strategy was put in place, our partners were working in silos. We were all doing great things, but now we're collaboratively working together, working for the greater good for our region, and I think it's very exciting that we're finally here to support each other and support our job seekers and our employers. So collaboration, number one. Second piece, I think somebody else mentioned it, how do you connect with, job seekers? And right now in New Brunswick, we need everyone engaged and working, because the reality is employers are desperate for people. They can't find the talent. So we really need to change the mindset of employers, because in the past, maybe people would come up to your door, knock on your door and say, look, I'm looking for a job. Well, that's not the case anymore. So employers need to really market themselves to be able to differentiate what are they, like why would somebody come to you, right? You want to make sure that you differentiate yourself. And really being open to all job seekers. Because there are a number of underrepresented groups that I think now are finally getting their day to shine, like Indigenous, persons with disabilities, newcomers, university grads. So we really need everyone engaged and in the workforce, and really I think that's an important piece. And I think, our department as well, like we have employment counselors every day working with job seekers. So they're there to support job seekers with resumes, job search techniques, connecting them with the workforce consultants who work closely with employers. So sometimes it's just a collaboration or a network to try to connect them with the right people. And then the last piece that I wanted to mention is that, really the piece that I think is really wonderful is that we're all working together, and we're working for the greater good for our region. At the end of the day, job seekers need work and employers need employees. So it's really that collaboration piece. And the last piece I wanted to talk about is that, with this strategy, we'll be able to create customized projects that will support employers in attaining job seekers. So I use the example in our region right now up in Carleton County. There was a job, an employer looking for MIG welders. And so for years, they desperately looked for MIG welders. And so in collaboration with industry, government, and with education facilities, they were able to create a program customized to grab MIG welders, and it's very successful. And so I envision, this strategy implementing similar type of projects in our region. So, we talk about software developers. That's usually the biggest piece, like where do we come up with software developers? So it could be looking at customized projects to, micro-credential, or it could be looking at creating customized job fairs for our region if there's industries struggling. So it's really, again, a collaboration and trying to support each other. And really, at the end of the day, it's a greater good, a collaboration to work together and provide more support in our region, which is great. Win-win for everyone.
That is a win-win. Thank you very much, Angela. So you know what? We'll do final words for everyone. So Angela, do you have a final word? Or did you get everything?
Well, I think I got everything in, but I just said I'm excited. I'm just really excited to be here and finally see it starting to go into the market. It's awesome. It's great.
Awesome. All right. So Sarah.
Kind of building on what Angela said around collaboration, I think we do our best work when we are working in partnership. I know with that MIG welding project in Western Valley with MECC and the employer, and working, it's been such a success. And I think my deputy would be unhappy with me if I didn't mention this. So we've actually launched a call for proposals process where we're looking for partners to come forward with ideas about growing the labor force. And no idea is like too big or too small. It can be provincial, it can be regional. So if you may have received the call for proposals from a Working NB office. If you haven't received that call and you have an idea, I would encourage you to reach out to Working NB office and they can get you connected with the call and you can put a submission in, because we are looking for creative and innovative ways to grow the labor force. We recognize government does not have all the answers. We've got lots of great stuff going on, but we're looking for even more ideas. So I think I'll end with that challenge to all of you to figure out if you have some ideas about how you can advance the work that we're doing here today and grow the labor force. Talk to your Working NB office and we'll see what we can do with your idea.
Who doesn't like a great contest? With money. All right, Oksana, what are your final thoughts?
When we saw the strategy, it's very heavy reading. But we were really impressed with the list of the partners that are involved in this, and we really hope that this will help reduce the efforts that we're doing all separate, and we'll consolidate all the efforts together. And communication and collaboration, those are the key.
Awesome, wonderful. Catherine?
I will say it's just so wonderful to, as you mentioned, seeing that list of all those different organizations. I think that's just absolutely incredible because they're all doing such different and valuable work. Having everybody aware of the other programs that are out there, I think awareness is probably the first step. There were names on there that I didn't recognize. I was excited about that, to find more and more partnerships. So to echo, collaboration in the workforce, I think, is really going to help us continue to match potential employees with potential employers.
Absolutely. It's always fun to go to a party where you don't know everybody. All right, Stanley, the final word.
I guess, I just want to echo that, partnership and collaboration is definitely, key to moving forward and, making sure our labor market is, successful. And, just one thing I want to end on is maybe a bit of, food for thought is, the decisions and actions that we do now affect the next 7 generations.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, thank you all for joining us this morning.